Back. I'm going to wait on a few people to get on the call. Today, we're going to be talking about enlarging your vision, and we'll get into how you do that and so forth. I think that a lot of us, we're not experiencing the life that we desire is because, to be honest, we're just seeing too small, and we want to address that, and we want to give you some tools so that you can begin enlarging your vision. We're going to be coming from Exodus, I want to say 16, and basically that's going to be talking about the principle of the manna. And this is actually a very wonderful story that we're going to be talking about. And I like to say from Genesis to Revelation is your story. And what we're speaking from is allegories and parables and different solutions and so forth that are given in the Bible. So many people read the Bible as they just look at it as the black and white text on the page, and they begin to look at that and they say, well, the Bible says this. And they don't know how to take those applications and apply it to their everydayness. And you know what I didn't do, and I'm thinking about going back and do it because nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. I'm thinking about stopping the talk and coming back on because I didn't give it a title. I'm not sure if I can give it a title right now, but I know the title right now isn't lining up with what we're going to really be talking about. So I'll say the title multiple times. We're going to be talking about expanding your vision. I know that that's not what the title says because I forgot to update the title. But we're going to talk about you expanding your vision, being able to take what it is, the way that you think, and begin to capitalize on your thinking so that you can have more, be more, do more of what it is that you want to have, do, be, and have, as it were. So we want to talk about that. And so, like I said, once I go back and do the re-editing, I'll basically update the title, but I'm not going to stop the talk down because I failed to update the title. Apparently, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on this, and so apparently I'm a little rusty. Bear with me. Not rusty in the information that's going to be delivered, though, just me setting it up. So let's go on and get started. I want to, again, we're going to be coming from Exodus 16. Don't solely look at this as a Bible lesson, otherwise, you're going to miss what's being taught to you. This is a spiritual psychology. This is how your mind body works. What a lot of people don't understand about the Bible is that it's a blueprint for life. And what I mean by that, it gives you principles, anecdotes, parables, stories, solutions of how mind works, how body works. And a lot of times we just look at this as a religious lesson, and so we miss what's being said. But we're going to talk about manna today. Manna in the Old Testament, again, the children, let me kind of paint a picture for you. In the early portion of the Old Testament, the children of Israel, how you doing? Good to see you. In the early portion of the Old Testament, the children of Israel left Egypt. Egypt is symbolic of our old mindset. A lot of times we come to, let's say, a Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, law of attraction, law of assumption, whatever that new paradigm is, and we leave behind the old mindset. And so we're going to talk about shifting from that old mindset. But in the story of the children of Israel, and I like to say that Israel is the man, woman, person who lives, who talks, who acts, and understands that they're creating their own reality or lives from a place of godhood. Now, a lot of time, religious people will hear that, and they're like, oh, blasphemy, heresy, apostate, all this stuff, because we've been programmed to see ourselves much less than who God sees us as. And so, because of that programming, anything that says that you're linked to the divine, all that's known as God, they look at it as blasphemy because they believe that just the title, the membership of Christianity is enough and we'll get ours in the hereafter. No, you're supposed to live heaven on earth right now. It says, bring heaven upon the earth, live days of heaven upon the earth. Know you not that the kingdom of God is in you. Again, this is not a religious lesson. I'm trying to get you to understand energetically, emotionally, spiritually, who you are. So let's go on and get into it. So in the Old Testament, there was a fleeing or a leaving of the old mindset. And you see this story over and over. Abraham leaving the land of the Chaldeans and going into a land of God to show him. Moses leaving Egypt and going into a land. Over and over again, you see this story repeated. This is your story. And this is what I want you to understand. Don't look at it and say, well, I'm not Christian, I'm not this. This doesn't matter. You're leaving one mindset into a new mindset. See, those who were responsible for Scripture, they took this ancient document and they said, well, hey, John, good to see you. How can we, of course, I remember you. Good to see you. They took this Scripture and they said, well, how can we use it? And I know nobody wants to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. How can we use it to control the people? How can we use it to control the populace? And so they took what was meant spiritually to uplift us, to elevate us, and they used it to incarcerate our minds. So the stuff that I'm teaching is helping you to liberate and understand as you think. I'm not trying to proselyte anybody. I'm not trying to win you over to the light side, dark side, whatever you call. I'm trying to get you to understand how your mind works. As you understand how your mind works, you'll begin to direct your own inner conversation, creating the life that you desire. And this has nothing to do with any membership. I'm not trying to get you to join any club, any membership, any professed group. I'm trying to get you to understand the divine in you, the hope of glory. Whatever God means to you, God in you as you. And as you begin to, it says, go into your inner closet and speak with the Father, or the I am within. When you start understanding that in you, in him, in her, in it, we live, we move, we have our existence. And apart from the divine that resides within each and every one of us, there is no membership. If you're living and breathing, absolutely, absolutely, pure, undefined consciousness. And it's us really becoming aware of that. Most people will live their whole lives never becoming aware that they're spiritual energy, a spiritual being having a human experience. They'll see themselves as, I'm only human, and I'm just doing the best I can, and I'm a Christian, I'm an atheist, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Muslim, I'm whatever the religion is that we identify ourselves with. You're more than that. But if I can believe that I'm only this religion, then I can be controlled by the leaders of so-called religion. That's how it works. So know you not that you are the temples of the living God. Let's get into the lesson. Again, we're coming from Exodus 16, talking about the manna. Children of Israel, they're in the wilderness. And in this wilderness, now you got to understand, even though they were enslaved, like many of us, to our old religion, even though they were enslaved, they ate, they had a place to sleep, even though the labor was harsh. So what happened was, when Moses liberated them from their bondage, and they were in the wilderness, they went through the Red Seas opened up, and now all of a sudden they're in the wilderness. And they start complaining. Understand, I say this often, but your complaint is a prayer for more of the same. So they start complaining, and plagues start happening and so forth. And they're like, what are we going to eat? You brought us out to this wilderness to die. Yeah, to die to your old self. Many of you, when you're hearing the principles, when you're hearing the laws and so forth, you're like, I've started this new journey with Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, Bob Proctor, whomever. And now on this new journey, my life seems to be more difficult than it was when I was just living in the land of Egypt. It's because you're dealing with growth pains. Anytime there's growing, that means that there's some part of you that's dying off, and there's some other part of you that's being lifted up. It says, if I be lifted up, the I am within you, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all manifestations unto me. Everything that you want happens when you begin to get lifted up in your consciousness. When you become aware that money is the byproduct of your thinking, that health is the byproduct of your thinking, that loving relationships is the byproduct of your thinking. If I be lifted up, I'll draw all manifestation, man, unto me. When you're lifted up in the consciousness and you begin to understand, my thinking creates my reality. You're welcome. My thinking creates my reality. And understand this. Thinking the seed, the thought that you're thinking, let's say of a more abundant life, a more loving life, better health. The seed, the desire, has a gestation period. It's dormant. And so just because the seed doesn't manifest or reproduce immediately, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Understand, some seeds, the way that they're designed, they give birth immediately. And all of a sudden you see the manifestation. The problem with that is then we think that all manifestation happens that way. And then you get these teachers, these gurus, these specialists that know about manifestation. They say, oh, you can manifest anything in 24 hours. Not so. Not so. Every seed has its own appointed time. You only need to look at nature. Some seeds, you plant them and they're like Jack and the Beanstalk, and not overnight, you got to harvest. Other seeds take more time. And I'm just saying this to encourage you to keep thinking on the hologram called reality. Keep imagining, keep believing. Reason being, your harvest is on its way. But the more you hold on to that belief, the more that you have feelings about that belief, the more that you can see it in your imagination. Subconscious mind's goal at that point is to see about bringing about what it is that you've imagined, good, bad, or indifferent, into your reality. I was recently speaking with somebody that was grieving. And she's like, well, is my grieving going to bring about more grieving? No, you got to go through the grieving process. We were designed to go through a grieving process. Now, once that period, look at the story of Job. You know, he went through and he had friends that were trying to comfort him and so forth. It even says that Jesus wept. What I'm saying to you, there's certain things in life that we have to go through. A lot of times the stuff that we're grieving is the process that we have to get through to go through the valley of the shadow of illusion to get to the other side. Don't start judging your grieving, because now the judgment of the grieving becomes the judgment. It says, blessed is the man, the woman who does not condemn themselves for the things which they've allowed. Now, because you lose a loved one, that's not your doing. It was their appointed time. Otherwise, they would still be with you. We all have an appointed time. We all have a story. Now, the problem is because the appointed time or how it shows up, we say, well, I didn't expect it like this. It shouldn't have happened like. We can't determine how the appointed happens once that bridge of incident is crossed. Now, leading up to it, you can start changing your thinking and change some conditions that may change the way that the appointed time happens to you. You get into better health, so now you got 10 years, 20 years added to your lifespan. Whereas when you were living that other lifestyle, you only had 5. Nobody can determine the when. But if you begin directing your own inner conversation in accordance to what it is that you want to be, do, or have, as you near that end, you're going to experience what most would call the more abundant life. But going back, so the children of Israel complaining, I digress sometimes, but it's purposeful because I think that at that moment, somebody needs to hear what's being said. Okay, so the children of Israel, they're in the wilderness and they're complaining. Now we're going to really get into manifestation here. They're complaining. And so, of course, now judgment happens because the complaint becomes the prayer. So now all of a sudden these plagues start happening to them and so forth. And, Moses prays and all of a sudden, the plagues are done. And he says, the people need something to eat. And the divine sent down this stuff called manna. Now, manna in its authentic form means, what is it? So why is this relevant to you? From Genesis to Revelation, this is your story. Why is this relevant to you? This is relevant to you because we're told that whatsoever things we desire when we pray, what it is that we're giving our attention to. As the master teacher says, you'll give an account even for the idle words. So whatsoever things that you, whatsoever, and we're also speaking to whosoever. So this works for all of us. Okay, so whatsoever things you desire when you pray, believe that you already have received those things, and they shall be yours. So manna, what is it? Whatsoever. So manna is symbolic of what it is that you desire. The children of Israel, the salvation that they were seeking at the moment was something to eat. Dr. Joseph Murphy told my mentor, and I've heard him say it also in other talks, that whatever you want at the moment, the thing that you're desiring, that's your salvation. And so he told my mentor, Lindo, he says, listen, if the thing that you desire is a hamburger, then a hamburger at that moment becomes your salvation. Understand this. Salvation is deliverance from the children of Israel. They were hungry to something to eat. Manna. Your manna is whatever that thing that you desire to bring about in your existence, the thing that you want to materialize, the thing that you're praying about, the thing that you're hoping for, the thing that you don't even know how it's going to be brought about, but you're believing that this manna is going to be brought into your life. So the children of Israel said, we're hungry. So what happens is these wafers started to be, as it were, rained down from heaven, and they would happen on a daily basis. Now, here's the interesting thing. They were told prior to the Sabbath to gather all the manna that you could eat for the Sabbath. Sabbath means day of rest. Now, and of course, in the Jewish calendar, that's on a Saturday. In the non-Jewish, pagan, Gentile, Christians, everybody else, that's on a Sunday, depending on how you celebrate it. Now, some believers celebrate it on Saturday. Whole point is, Sabbath is symbolic of rest. The Israelites were told not to do any work on the Sabbath. From Genesis to Revelation, this is your story. How is it symbolic? How does it apply? When you begin operating from the thing that you desire, when you start seeing it as already in a reality, you start resting, knowing not the how, but it's done. And you live as a person that already has the thing that you want to be, do, or have. You start living from the state of being a millionaire. Now, what this doesn't mean, for those who don't understand, doesn't mean go out and get in debt. That doesn't. It means you start re-educating yourself. You start learning the skill sets, author, dancer, actor, whatever it is that you want to be, do, or have, you start learning the skill sets. It's not going to happen by osmosis. It's not going to happen that way. You start becoming the person that can obtain that new identity. When I was in corporate America, moved from California to Georgia, was in my first job, and I was making probably less than minimum wage at that time. And I found out that the managers were making a certain amount of money. And I said, okay, what do I need to do to become a manager so that I can increase my earnings? How can I offer value? Okay, so I started speaking to other managers. They told me what it was that I needed to do. I started taking on more responsibilities. I started learning what it took to be a manager. Matter of fact, one of the managers gave me a book that said How to Be a New Manager. My whole point is, whatever it is that you want to be, do, or have, don't think that only thing you have to do is think about it. You also have to be about it. Neville called that living from the end. You have to take on the new identity. So now there's new learning that you have to do. Whatever that new thing, relationships, better health. That better health, I talked to a young man years ago, and he was dealing with some health issues. Now, he wanted to practice his same habits that caused the health issues and just think positively about being healthier. Positive thinking will help, But you also have to begin looking at your diet. You have to look at your lifestyle. If you have a bad temperament, but you want to be in a loving relationship, you have to begin to address that temperament, because what's going to happen is you're going to find that partner that you've imagined, but you're going to still have that bad temperament. And what's going to happen is you're going to get into that relationship, and all of a sudden, because your temper is so bad, that they're going to say, like, I can't do this. I've been in other relationships similar to this. This is not for me. I'm getting out. So now you're trying to get somebody to help you manifest your SP back. This is not a criticism. I'm just letting you know how this stuff works. You have to be born again. And I'm not talking about the religious connotation. You have to take on a new mindset. So the children of Israel, they're told to gather manna, but to gather manna enough for the Sabbath. And on one occasion, somebody decided that they were going to sneak some manna, after the Sabbath. First and foremost, the manna had rotten. There were worms in the ones that they were trying to keep beyond the Sabbath. Sufficient for today is the needs that are supplied to you today. So what they said about the manna, though, it says, for those who gathered little, it was enough. And for those who gathered much, it was enough. What am I saying to you? Whatever you believe. So now, if you believe in a universe of lack, loss, and limitation, then you're only going to see the evidence of that. Even if you come into a windfall of money, an inheritance, a lottery win, whatever, because your mindset, because of your programming, and some of us are dealing with programming that's well over 2,000 years old. Church programming, what we believe about money. Money's evil. Money's the root of all kind of evil. Money, bad people only have money. So we operate from that dynamics, and we say, well, but I can never get enough money to last me to the end of the month. Once we change the dynamics of our thinking, absolutely. Someone just posted up for me. If you believe in lack, loss, and limitation, then lack, loss, and limitation is going to show up in the place of that abundance. Even though it may initially look at, it's like a lottery winner. What they've discovered about lottery winners is that they're in a worse state after winning the lottery than they were before having the lottery. As far as debt, some people are being killed. I mean, literally. Don't want to go into that, but I'm just saying, sometimes it's like the story, I've been better off if I never wanted to see that money. People say that because it's true for them, because they're not vibrating at a place of abundance. They haven't learned to him, her who has, more shall be given. But to him, her who has not, even that which they have shall be taken from them. You can't, if you're not holding the vibration in relationships, in health, in money, you're not going to keep it, no matter what the gurus say, no matter what formula they give to you. Many people are chasing all these formulas. They're just not holding the vibration of the thing that they say that they want to materialize in their life. Okay, so the whole purpose of when we're talking about the manna, what do you believe for yourself? Do you believe in wisdom, wellness, and wealth? Or are you still holding on to lack, loss, and limitation? Be it done unto you according to your belief. So it says that each person gathered the manna that they needed, and according to what they gathered, it was enough. So whatever you believe about reality, life's going to say, be it done unto you according to your belief. And it can't be otherwise. This is like when people show up on my channel and they say, this is a bunch of hogwash. I can only say to them, you're absolutely correct. Because there's no amount of convincing. Now, sometimes, especially if we're dealing with somebody that I believe that they have some spiritual knowledge, I try to impart to them. I know that they're probably not going to change their stance, but I at least want to give insight. And the reason why I give the insight is not so much for them. I give the insight for you, because if they put something up on the page and I say nothing about it, your assumption may be, oh, maybe they're right. So I have to dispel or remove that comment, because otherwise it's going to keep you from your abundance, for that more abundant life, the things that you want to manifest in your life, the things you want to materialize. Thought creates reality. Master teacher used to say this when he would heal somebody. when you're on the way to your manifestation, when you're on the way to your healing. I said this on Instagram. Somebody said, no, he didn't say that. He said, when you're on the way to the priest, when you're on the way to show the priest that you've been healed. I just say manifestation. Talk to no man, tell no man. Why? Because he knew that you would be distracted on your way, and somebody would say, well, you don't look healed. And so you say, well, if I don't look healed, I must not be healed. So it would undo all the work that has been done. It said that the master teacher could not do many miracles in his own hometown because of what? Because of their unbelief. This is why even in the wilderness experience, it took them 40 years because they had to weed out the unbelievers, the people that did not believe that they could go into the promised land or the land of promise and inhabit the land. Because God knew through Moses that if these people went in, they would say, oh no, we can't take the land. Matter of fact, they sent in 2 camps while they were in the wilderness after 40 years. And one had Caleb and one had some other men. Now, the group that went with Caleb, because of his encouragement, they said, oh, we could take the land. Let's go and take the land. The ones that did not have Caleb, they said, oh no, these guys, we're like grasshoppers in our own sight. Hear what they said. We're like, not grasshoppers, good morning to you, not grasshoppers in their sight, but we're like grasshoppers in our own sight. See, how you see yourself, the church has discouraged us for years. Self-esteem, positive thinking. How you see yourself matters. If you see yourself as more than the conqueror, if you see yourself, I can do all things through the divine in me. If you see yourself, the land is mine, let me go inhabit, whatever that land of imagination is, then you can go and inhabit the land. But if you say, well, I'm just a poor Christian and I'm just going to wait on mine on the hereafter, and you may not be Christian, there may be some other spiritual name that you call yourself, but poverty is next to godliness and all this stuff. If that's how you believe, then you're only going to see more evidence of that. So they could not go and take the land. So they were actually supposed to go and take the land much earlier, but because of that bad report, it kept the children of Israel out of the land for 40 years. God was building them up in the wilderness. What is your wilderness experience? Understand this. God is not using that wilderness experience that you're experiencing to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. Okay, so let's move forward. So whatever you're saying by way of your imagination, your predominant thoughts, that's what's going to be outpictured onto this holograph called reality. Master teacher said this: you shall know a tree by its fruits. What we call fruits is nothing more than lifestyle. We can know what your predominant thinking is by what it is that you're experiencing primarily in your life. When that thinking changes, so will the outpicturing on this thing called reality. It can't not. Most of us just haven't abided long enough in the new belief system to bring about its materialization in what we call this holograph called reality. You have to live it and be it as though it was already your reality. And you say, well, coach, for how long? Until it's brought about, or till you change your mind, or till you die. There was a guy by the name of 50 Cent, and he says he had a movie many years ago, and it was Get Rich or Die Trying. You have to do what it is that you're going to do till it happens, or you die trying. That's how long. If it's something that the divine has, and understand this, Abraham was almost 100 years old. Colonel Haddon Sanders was at least 62 years old before he started pushing his 7 herbs and spices, what we call Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now we call it KFC. You're welcome, Rob. Good to see you, brother. What I'm saying is you keep pushing forward, either till it's brought about. You can't know. Abraham did not see the fulfillment of the promise. He saw his seeds. He saw seeds being born. He saw Isaac. He saw Ishmael. He saw his grandsons. Understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying to you is that you have to start thinking from a place of not days or weeks, but generations. I'm leaving a legacy that's going to last for generations. As you embody that, It can't not show up. Most of us, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with, immediate manifestations. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you got to become somebody else. You got to become bigger. You got to outgrow that old mindset. You have to enlarge your vision. And for those who have come on late, that was supposed to be the title, but I failed to update the title. I guess it's been a couple weeks since I've done this, and I was a little rusty. But this is about enlarging your vision. And understand this. Whatever you see on this holograph card, you can't see it too big. We've been taught that it's arrogant, that it's this, that it's that, to keep us thinking small. This is purposeful, to get us in a job, to get us in an occupation, so that we don't think for ourselves. But whatever it says that mind has not seen, nor has it entered into the imagination of people, the things that the divine has planned for them. You can't outthink God. As big as you think that you can see it, God's going to multiply it. The divine's going to multiply, whatever you call that divine energy. You can't sow a single seed and then just get a kernel of corn. You're going to get a bushel. So my point to you, he says some 60, some 30, whatever you're sowing on the soil, he's telling you it's going to be multiplied. So when you start seeing that vision as big as you think, you say, oh, I just want to grow a $10 million business. It's going to be a $100 million business. I want a $100 million. It's going to be a $1 billion business. Man by the name of Jeff Bezos, no matter what you think about him, you got to understand how this stuff works. So I use these examples years ago, probably 30, 35 years. He told his employee, I want to start an online bookstore out of my garage. He says, I want to create something that's going to be, $100 billion. Understand this. His employer thought he was crazy. Anybody that he would tell that story to thought he was crazy. If your vision doesn't stretch you, it's not worthy of you. Let me say it again. If your vision, the thing that you believe that God has for you to do, doesn't stretch you, if you can just go out tomorrow and say, well, my vision is to go to the store and get a carton of milk. That's a part of manifestation, but it's not stretching you. It's not making you, it's not causing growing pains. It's not making you want to, can I do this? Because see, whatever that vision is, you in and of yourself, you're not going to be able to accomplish it in and of yourself. It's going to take a divine spark igniting in you, through you, as you. And it says that when you're on the way to your manifestation, tell no person, because your vision is going to be so big. It's going to be Jeff Bezos big. It's going to be Andrew Carnegie big. No matter, I put these people out there as examples of what God can do through you, and everybody always pops up, but they did this wrong and they did that wrong. Then you get rich and do something different. Stop talking about what they did wrong. You get wealthy, you get prosperous, you get healthy, you get in a loving relationship, and don't do what your parents did if they did such a bad job. You manifest and do something different. Don't talk about what they did. What are you going to do? Understand this. Nobody in history remembers the naysayers that said that Edison couldn't get it done, that Henry Ford couldn't get it done, that Andrew Carnegie couldn't get it done, that Jeff Bezos couldn't get it done. Nobody remembers the people that said that they couldn't get it done. Don't be that person. Be the person getting it done and the other people saying that you can't get it done. Okay, let me come off that soapbox. Guys, I want to impress upon you, whatever you're imagining on this, if you can keep seeing it over and over, if you can still feel yourself being it, if you can occupy the state, you can have it. But you got to start living as though you are already the person. What's going to happen is the world's going to acquiesce. It's going to act as silly putty, and it's going to start taking shape and saying, oh, we always knew you could do it. Guys, I want you to get what I'm saying. Those who are what we call the top 1%, but even spiritually, those who are the top 1% started seeing it in their mind's eye first. Neville Goddard, 6 people at his first talk, but he saw hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people being transformed. Joseph Murphy would actually go to his church and see these empty pews and just imagine them being filled to the brim. What about you? You got to understand, I keep posting this stuff out there because this is how the stuff works. Everybody wants to give you magic formulas and trick it. Oh, if you just do these 3 steps, I'm not opposed to any of that. If you can get it in your mind's eye, if you can see it in your imagination, if you can do it, be it, and have it in the imagination, in the realm of imagination. I was going to do something about the different dimensions this week, but this landed on my spirit, and I said, well, I can talk about the different dimensions: 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 5 dimensions, all the way up to 10 dimensions. So you can understand, you know, even that we make otherworldly. So if we understand how dimensions work, then we can begin to occupy those states of those dimensions and bring about the materialization of the manifestation of the things that we say that we want to be, do, or have. So hopefully that will be something you'll be interested in next week. But again, we're going to be talking about the different dimensions and how you enter into those different dimensions. Often we're doing some of these dimensions unaware, but we're moving in and out of different dimensions and we don't even know it, but you will know it after next week. So, okay, so enlarge your vision is what we're at this point. And then I'm going to give you some steps. I did an acrostic, and the acrostic is going to be using the word manna, but I'm going to tell you how to make this stuff more practical. You know, somebody got on one of my talks and she says, only thing I heard was blah, blah, blah. She just wasn't listening close enough, but I'm going to give you some practical principles. The problem with listening to myself, Mr. Lindo, whomever, even Neville Goddard, you get so accustomed to listening and you keep looking for this trinket. And what we're telling you is the how of desired change. But because you keep looking for this special magic formula, you keep missing the how of desired change. Most of you guys know how to do this. Matter of fact, some of you are successfully doing this and you come back and you tell me about the results. But many of you keep chasing teachers, you keep chasing techniques, you keep looking for the silver bullet. You're the silver bullet. As you begin to present what it is on the hologram, the wealthy of the wealthiest, the most successful, the Nobel Prize winners, they're all saying the same thing. Whatever you're imagining, whatever you're picturing on this holograph, this screen, through your mind, called reality. Whatever you're holding longer to. Now, in the school system, in the education system, in the religious system, it says the opposite, that this stuff here controls, what's going on in here. Not so. It's just the opposite. Most of us are living in reverse, and this is why manifestation isn't working for us. We're operating from, absolutely, I am that. We're operating from have, do, be. If I have enough money, then I can do everything I want and I'll be happy. The true flow of it is that one of the wealthiest people in the world, billionaire, anytime you're a billionaire, you're still one of the wealthiest people in the world, but he was talking to his children. They said, Dad, how do we become successful? How do we obtain, a multi-million dollar, billion-dollar business? And he says, find out the thing that you enjoy most in the world. Start doing it and do it for as many people as you can. But first and foremost, see yourself being successful doing that thing. And I say this often. There's nothing that you can think about doing that somebody somewhere in the world isn't very successful at it, making a lot of money at it, and enjoying their lives. What you find about the people like the Jeff Bezos, the like him loving Elon Musk's, the Andrew Carnegie's, the Henry Ford, they found something that they loved doing. It really wasn't even about making money ultimately. It was something they found. And Andrew Carnegie, love him, hate him, whatever your story is about him, his goal was, I want to impact the lives of millions of people by creating libraries and places where people can obtain information. Matter of fact, he was so passionate about this that he had Napoleon Hill commissioned to do the book that we know today as Think and Grow Rich. What I'm saying to you, you can complain and talk about these people all you want, or you can be your best version and impact the world as only you can. But like I said, Nobody talks about the critics. Nobody talks about the trolls. You know, people talk about Kim Kardashian, whatever you think about the Kardashian family. But 100 years from now, everybody that's talking about them, nobody will remember. But they still will be talking about how these women with little to no skills created an empire by simply broadcasting their lives. Again, it doesn't matter what you think about. What I'm trying to let you see, it doesn't matter what you think of. If you find a way to be of value, to serve other people, you're going to discover your audience. I promise you. Okay, so enlarge your vision. Whatever you can imagine, understand this: God, universe, source is going to multiply, but you have to begin living from that imagination. You have to become, I say it often because I want you to get it, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. Why is this relevant? Whatever you imagine yourself to be, you will start embodying that in human form. Spirit, it says, whatever you bind or loose in heaven will be bound or loose on the earth. Earth sets the criteria. Your mind sets the criteria. Then spirit, universe, whatever you call that silly putty called reality, will begin to shape itself after your imagination. Okay, so let's get into some practical steps. How to manifest, how to materialize the life that you desire. And we'll wind it down. Okay, I'm using the principle MANNA. So I'm going to be using the acronym MANNA. So M, make a decision. As simple as that sounds, most of us have never made the decision. Oh, coach, I made it. You've made decisions, but you've never stuck with one thing to say, this is who I'm going to be, period. Those who decide, this is who I'm going to be, if that's for the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and they immerse themselves in the being, as Neville called living from the end of that being. When you become that person over a course of time, sometimes quickly, sometimes it may take a little bit of time, you're going to become that person. There was a guy by the name of Brian Allen. Now, I only knew Brian as a comedian until one day he showed up and I found out that he was a billionaire. I'm like, how did he go from comedian to billionaire? Brian decided that he wanted to get into television, network, and so forth. And he started making phone calls. Brian Allen was making hundreds, if not thousands of phone calls a day, being turned down every day. And he was doing this for a period of years. And one day he got a call from this very wealthy man. He says, listen, I've heard a lot of good things about you. I want you to come out to my office. I'm in New York, and wherever Brian was traveling from, I could say California, but I'm not sure where he was traveling from. And so he flew out to meet the guy. And the guy says, you know, I hear that you're probably one of the best salespeople in the world. He says, other than my father. And he says, this tie was my father's. He said, but what I want you to do for me is to make a pitch. And Brian pitched him. Now, you got to understand, Brian was pitching for years, being told no over and over again. My question is, how big is your vision? Okay, so Edison was said that he did not create the electric light bulb, as everybody says. He did not. Other people had already created the electric light bulb. What Edison did was created the filament that lasted much longer than anybody up until the time of Edison creating the electric light bulb. But there was a guy from the UK that had created a light bulb. Then there was another guy in the US that created one whose carbon lasted a little bit longer. But Edison created the filament that lasted much longer than anyone else up until the time of Edison. Okay, so, but Edison was said to have tried 10,000 times. What about you? See, you can't be on this journey and say, well, coach, I want to be this, do that, and have that. And a few weeks pass, and you say, well, I tried for 2 weeks and it didn't work. Then you're not serious. You got to do it or die. You got to be committed to that thing that you say that you're going to do. Because if you commit to it to that level, it's only a matter of time. This is what the most successful people in the world discovered. If you stick to it long enough, if you persist long enough, and you hold the ideal and you live from the ideal, pretty soon the world's going to say, that's just who they are. Whatever that is. They just do stuff. So going back to Brian Allen. So Anyway, the guy meets him. He says, I want you to come out to my house. I'm having a function. Brian didn't have any money, so he had to get a taxi, got out there and so forth. And the gentleman says, while he's at this function, who are those guys that turned you down? And Brian looked around at the group of people and he said, pretty much all of them. They had this inside joke. No matter how many times this guy calls, he's never going to get a deal with me. So the guy that brought him to the function says, listen, Byron's my friend. And if he calls you, pick up the phone. If you don't, I'm going to drop you from my network. This man was the owner of one of the major networks at that time. Needless to say, people started answering Byron's call. Byron has been in lawsuits with people that were basically trying to stop him from excelling and so forth. And bottom line is, Byron Allen today is a billionaire. Money doesn't necessarily have to be your goal. This is not what I'm saying. It could be health, it could be relationship. What do you want? Make a decision. So first and foremost, make a decision. Second, align with the picture. You got to see the vision of the thing that you want inwardly. And you say, well, I don't know how to visualize. Then that's probably something you want to learn. If you say that this is something that you want to materialize in your life, to me, it's worth taking the time. And the truth of the matter is, everybody visualizes. If I say, don't see a red car right now, I guarantee you 99% of you are seeing a red car. We all visualize. Now, we do it and we're not aware. It's like, okay, somebody leaves your house. She's like, what did they have on today? Well, they had some blue jeans. And you got to visualize to see that. If you couldn't visualize, you couldn't see that they had blue jeans and a red top or whatever, especially if it's your child. Everybody visualizes. We just don't realize that we're doing it. So next, make your desire clear is the M. A, align with the picture. It says, how can two walk together unless there's a spirit of agreement? You and your subconscious and your conscious. So what you're saying consistently and persistently has to be in line with the pictures that you're imagining. You can't imagine lack, loss, and limitation, but say, I want to create abundance. Because understand this, as someone said many years ago, if there's conflict between imagination, what you're imagining, what you're picturing, and willpower, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to pull myself up by my boobs. 100% of the time, imagination is going to win out. What you picture in your mind consistently and persistently, that's going to be the thing that most often shows up in your world. This is why some people say, well, I tried Neville Goddard, get into a state of can't sleep, just before going to bed, and I dream nightmares. Because throughout the day, the thing you've been focused on are the nightmares. You got to make it a habit throughout the day, envisioning, seeing yourself being, doing, having who it is that you say that you want to be, do, or have. Your mind is so powerful, and you have to get what I'm saying. This is not about me. I don't gain anything. What I'm saying is that you're a creator. And people will come on my channel and try to talk you. Oh, no, you're not a creator. You're not God. You're God's offspring. It says, let us create man, woman in our image and in our likeness. So what God does, so do. It says, in the beginning, God said, and there was. You say in the beginning of your day, and it's so. It's going to be outpictured into your reality. Whatever you say, man, it'll be verbalized. You may wake up thinking, oh, this is going to be a terrible day. So throughout the day, you see the evidence of this being a terrible day. That's how powerful you are. You've done this your entire life. Only thing I'm saying is be more conscious of what it is that you're saying to yourself, what you're imagining at any given moment. Be purposeful. Start exercising the imagination. It's going to get stronger. Be purposeful. Okay, I'm going to the store. Let me see myself going to the store, getting the items that I need. You're just exercising the muscle. You say, well, everybody goes to the store. Start there. Getting dressed. Okay, what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat this morning? What am I going to have for dinner? Start there. As you begin exercising your imagination, you're going to get better. Pretty soon you're going to start thinking, okay, I want to be a millionaire. Let me start living from the place of being a millionaire. I want to be in a loving relationship. Let me start exercising from the place of being in love. I want to be in better health. Let me start exercising from the place of being in better health. As you begin exercising your mind consistently and persistently, you're going to see the results. Okay, so make a clear decision. Align with the picture in your mind. Nurture the feelings. Neville had something called feeling is the secret. Your feelings, the way you operate, is different from everybody else. So somebody says, oh, you really got to get excited. You got to get pumped up. That may not be your disposition. You do you. If yours is a calm, tranquil feeling, but I got this, it may just be, I got this. I'm going to make that. I got this. It may just be that. It may be that smirk on your face. Yeah, it's coming. You have to align with the feelings that align with your doing, being, and having that thing that you say that you want to do or be have. I stated earlier that somebody was going through the grieving process. She had lost her husband. And she said, well, I don't feel like I'm doing this the way that Neville says that I need to do this and, things along that line. And nobody can tell me how to grieve. Forget everybody else. I just cleaned that up. I had another thought come in my mind, but I'm forget what everybody else is saying. You go through the way that you need to go through. Forget Neville Goddard. Forget Joseph Murphy. If you're grieving, grieve like you need to grieve. Nobody can tell you how to grieve. You got 8 billion people, and each one losing somebody significant to them is going to process it slightly different, no matter what therapist, psychology, or whatever says. Your journey is your journey. Do it the way that you need to do it. Then once you get through that journey, get back on track and start thinking from the thing that you want to be, do, or have. But don't feel like you're not grieving properly because you're not doing it like somebody in a textbook said that you need to do it. Be you, do you, and do it the best way that serves you. Okay, so get into the feeling. So make a decision, get the picture, get the feelings, notice opportunities. Once you make the decision, I lost somebody when I said forget Neville. We've made Neville Goddard a religion. And that's not what he wanted. He said, listen, I don't want you to, cross yourself and get in front of a crucifix of Neville. He wanted you to have your own experience. And we've made Neville, and some people get in these communities. If it's not what Neville Goddard says, now Neville Goddard's become your God. You've just replaced one religion for another. What Neville Goddard wanted you to get was that God resides in you, as you, through you. And according to as you think, you have, you do, you be. He wanted you to have the same promise experience that he had. But it's not going to be the same promise experience that he had. It's going to be uniquely yours. I know people that chase the promise and they think that if I have the promise, then this is going to validate how spiritual I am. It's not. I've had it. It's not. I can still cuss a person out. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that you understand your oneness with the allness known as God. But I had determined way before having any promise experience, I didn't need a promise experience to understand that me and Father were one. I was already there. When you already are there, the only thing the promise does is validate your being there, if that makes sense. Okay, so make your decision, whatever your desire is, align with the picture that you have in your mind. Nurture the feelings. Notice the opportunities. Opportunities are going to present themselves once you make the decision. Now, understand this about the opportunities. They're going to be good, bad, or indifferent. So the woman that opens herself up to being in a loving relationship, she's going to see frogs and princes. We keep wanting the divine to make the decision for us. God's not going to make the decision for you. God's going to show you some things about people and so forth. Then from that, you're given, choose this day. Don't come back and say, God, how could you make me, allow me to make that decision? He would be taking away your power, your right to choose if he's choosing for you. He's not going to make the decision. She's not going to make the decision. It's not going to make the decision. Whatever you call that energy, you're given to choose this day. Take ownership, take responsibility. We all want to give it to a source of being and intelligence outside of us, and we want God to figure it out. If you don't do it, it won't be done. I don't know how that's going to sound to some, but if you don't do it, if God doesn't do it through you as you, it won't be done. I'm sure I'll get some pushback on that, and that's okay. I can take it. I can take it. Okay, notice the opportunities. Opportunities will present themselves to you. Lastly, appreciate. Absolutely. Blessed to all who read this. Appreciate. Get into a state of gratitude. One of the things that used to excite me as a kid about Christmas is, occasionally we would see the gifts. You're welcome. Occasionally we would see the gifts we would sneak around the house and try to figure out where the gifts were being hid. So we would already know. So we would get excited. We would already see ourselves playing with the gifts that we knew that we had. You have to be that person. I say this and I'll say it again today in closing. You have to imagine your past and remember your future. Now, what does that mean? Imagine your past the way that you want it to be. As you begin to see events that may have been traumatic, whatever, as you desire for them to be, you're going to change the physiological system within your body. You're going to start getting some things aligned because your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what it is that you're imagining in the actual event. And if you play that long enough that, I come from a wealthy family that, things that I needed were always supplied to me. I know that I can get everything that I want. And that begins to be your story. You're going to see the evidence of that. Many of us, our stories are stories of lack, loss, and limitation, and we keep telling the stories to anyone that listens. But we keep wondering why that keeps being projected into our now and into our future. It's because we keep telling the same old story. Change the story. So imagine your past. Then, like those little kids around Christmas, remember your future. See, you've already got a picture of who it is that you're going to be, do, or have. So as you're operating from the picture of what you've imagined yourself to be, and then you, like Michael J. Fox, come back from the future and you begin living in your present. But see, you've already got a picture of the future. You've already been there. Now, the only thing you're doing is living out the circumstance because you've already taken the test. You already know the answers. You're just going through the motions of the materialization of the manifestation. You're allowing the world, this holograph called reality, to catch up with you. Guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Thanks for welcoming me back by showing up. And I'll see you next week. Have a great and abundant day. Thank you.